Hi there, and welcome to episode 114 of the ADHD Adults podcast. I'm James Brown, the man who can hold three competing thoughts in his head at the same time, as long as there are all ways to hide from old big balloon face himself. I can't believe I read that out wrong. I ruined my own joke there. And as usual, I'm joined by the man who knows intellectually that murder is bad, but Dr. Alex Connor. And of course, the only person whose voices in the head are all in absolute agreement, Mrs. ADHD. Alex, hi.
I intellectually know my hellos are bad, but I'm doing them anyway. You see?
Yeah, that's it. See, that's a hint, Sam. Of
I
what
don't know what any.
Well,
I don't know
hopefully,
what's going on.
Hopefully, after the psychoeducation, you will. But anyway, oh God, I've IED'd that, haven't I?
Yeah.
Why was there a joke?
Well, no, in a way, I just did it differently because that was a form of cognitive dissonance, and it isn't a hello as well. It is just a boring sentence. So
It is.
basically, because I was looking at you and looking confused, I thought I'll explain it to you, and I didn't look at the script. Anyway, I don't care. Sam, hi.
Hiya.
I like you both, Mrs. ADHD first.
I don't know what's going on.
How are you?
Yes.
I'm all right. I'm all right, thanks.
Alex?
You?
Oh, sorry. How
No,
are you?
No.
What? I don't know what you want me to do. I don't
This
know.
is so much fun. If you don't know what's going on, being able to wind Sam up by pretending there's things in the script she hasn't seen when they're not in fact there at all is much more fun than it sounds. It's amazing.
It really is. Alex, how are you?
Hi, excellent. Thank you, James. Yeah, doing much better, thank you. The numbers guy sent us some graphs as well last week. They seemed very excited by them, and one of them was blue. We don't know what any of it meant, but we do know that one of them sent us a letter.
They did not.
They did. That's right, James. It's from a Robert from Kidderminster, in a way, sort of. It says, I didn't listen to your episode on nose and face picking last week because
I'm
I
dead.
actually watched it on Heaven YouTube or whatever. Now, what I would say, though, is it's pretty obvious that James was lying about picking his face because no one would pick that face. Hey!
That's a
No,
good
they wouldn't,
one.
Robert. A joke, an actual joke. We've had a real letter. Can I read it out?
No.
Yeah.
That's right, James. It's from Gritty RSD, which is a brilliant name, on the old discards. And it says, ADHD Adult UK have been a literal lifeline for me and created a community where I can search for self-acceptance. Oh, welcome. Diagnosed at 49, this is how I describe my adult life to my psychiatrist. Never being a real adult. Feeling like I was on a never-ending emotional roller coaster of low self-worth and poor self-care. Oh, yeah. Even though I knew others struggled with life's roller coaster, it felt to me like they were strapped in and I was clinging to the outside alone, often falling off towards something terrible. The community ADHD Adult UK created, the message of self-acceptance, blah, 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 winky face in case we got RSD, which I really respect. The support that ADHD Adults UK and all their volunteers freely give, in no small part, helped save my life. And I just voted for the National Diversity Awards. Gritty RSD, thank you. We felt the same way. We always knew we were different, but we thought we were alone, and we're not.
You did, wasn't that lovely?
Yeah.
Internationally, James, it's a really good question. I just hang on. Checking my notes. Can you hear the scrimpling of face? We're up by one country to 159 countries. What are the chances?
No.
None. This week's country is almost certainly not Zimbabwe again, which has 16 official languages, and which James has deliberately picked one that's hard to use, Ndebele, I think it is. So, Salibonani and Sialamkela, to our one listener in Zimbabwe who only listens as they really hope it will eventually turn into a woodpecker-based podcast, as they've got a cardinal woodpecker in their back garden.
Is that a type of woodpecker?
James, I have to interrupt this. You've written that bit. Did you? Be honest, did you Google the territorial speciation of woodpeckers?
Yeah, I did.
It's a very specific and accurate Central African species, the cardinal woodpecker. It's literally, it's quite small for woodpecker, and they've got very defined head markings, and they're only found.
They in Zimbabwe?
They are amongst like the Congo and Central Africa, and they don't come here. You can tell by its jizz. They're only about 15 centimeters. Yeah. You did, didn't you? You Googled Zimbabwean woodpecker.
Did you actually say you can tell by its jizz?
I did, yeah.
That's
That's
amazing.
the phrase birders use to describe. You know, when you look at a bird, you're like, oh, that's a red kite. I was just
Yeah.
translating from the German. But you don't really know why, you know? That's because you can see the jizz, which is spelt the same as spunk, Jizz. And it means like the overall, you can tell by the overall sort of view.
It just fitted in perfectly with Sam's ding when you say it doesn't
Ding.
come here. She said ding, and you said because of its jizz.
Yeah,
The
I
jizz
thought
is
you were
fun.
carrying on the ding. But
Amazing.
Just a bird, I think.
Amazing.
I am like James Dean, aren't I? You're right.
yeah.
Yes, I mean, exactly. Anyway, as usual, there's cat shit I forgot to clean up before mowing the lawn, which definitely didn't immediately shellac the blades of the lawn and mow, so Mrs. ADHD had to clean it of a podcast. Here's a tragedy in 3 parts. We choose a theme. Last week was about ADHD and affirms, or body-focused repetitive behaviours. And this week we're focusing on something which hopefully Mrs. ADHD is going to have a shared experience with most of you with, which is what's that? And that's cognitive dissonance and ADHD. As usual, the 3 parts include the Ringo Starr of evidence, Alex the Psycho Education Monkey.
Hello.
Telling us all about the topic, our personal reflections on the theme, and tips, tops, topics, loganing of gabbies, whatever we're calling it. So, Alex, I'm planning to let you speak, despite knowing it's a bad idea. Is that cognitive dissonance?
You're still doing it, aren't you? I mean, yeah. Pretty much. We can just go home after that. Although, to be honest, I just want to do everything in a Ringo Starr voice now. Okay, we're mainly peace and love. I will not sign anymore. He's an absolute knobhead.
Yeah.
We'll cut that in post. I don't know what that means. Okay, right. We're doing an episode on this mainly because it was a good question on the Thursday episode from Mr. Glenn, I think it was. Cognitive dissonance is just a human thing that we humans can do. There aren't many creatures that can. There are some. And it means holding 2 separate thoughts or actions that oppose each other at the same time. So, Sam, if you think something, but actually your belief system is another thing, or if you do something, but you don't think it's right, but there's a dissonance there. It's like 2 sound waves that bounce against each other, the dissonance. And it's like a thought dissonance. So you think something, but your values say another.
Right. And this is related to ADHD. How?
James, have you added that early? Because you can literally see in the script that I talk about ADHD from the beginning.
No.
So, James, people with ADHD may do some elements of this more than regular people. There ain't a lot of actual research. Obviously, there isn't, because, ADHD research. But if we have a look at the main types, because it is pretty obvious how ADHD will relate to this in a minute. Regardless of whether you've got ADHD, some psychologists, many probably, think that if your thoughts or your actions or your behaviors aren't in line with your values or even like your other thoughts for how things should be, that is going to cause you stress and it's going to be unhealthy. That's a bit zen, really. Have you aligned your chakras yet, James? That's what we're doing. I aligned James's chakras once, but I got my head stuck. I've got distracted. So, for example, what I'm saying is if someone's action or behavior is, let's just say they continue to give little talks, at the same time, they have particular values, such as they don't want to give shit talk. That's going to cause some stress, some dissonance and stress, mainly for the audience, but, also for the person doing it.
I think I preferred it when you were sad, Alex, and in a really bad place, to be honest. You were better at this in general.
Like funnier.
Yeah.
Right, so I'm trying to understand this. So what if you've got a job that goes against your values, but you have to do it?
That's it. That's the question. It's a perfect question. There can be lots of reasons why our actions or thoughts don't agree with what we want, what we value, what we care about. And that's one of them. It's called forced compliance. It's very, very common, not just ADHD. And it's massively reported as a high driver of dissatisfaction and stress. That thing of, well, I was just doing my job, I had to do it. It's an excuse that doesn't work on your own subconscious. It might work externally, but it doesn't work on your own subconscious. So at least those people who lied about Boris Johnson, supported him for a nasty, grubby little knighthood, they might face some angst late at night when it's dark and they've got some clarity, don't you think?
Are you okay?
Just angry about the honours list, James, again, like I am every time it comes out. Right. For ADHD, the other two key drivers of cognitive dissonance are doing something you know isn't quite right for you, and probably more likely that. So first is making negative health choices, or even being addicted to something. So substance use, eating issues, gambling. Tuesday, that is for you, James. Make jokes about that. They're not the target of the joke. They're the subject. James is very much the target. It's
Absolutely.
unlikely that many people particularly value the concept of smoking or, gambling or Candy Crush Saga, or whatever it is, but they do it anyway. I guess, but most know that this isn't the right thing to do for them and do it anyway. Sometimes because of chemical addiction. When impulsiveness and high reward seeking is an actual neurological problem for you, of course, that's exacerbated. And then the other one, the second one, is that ADHD is executive function. If you don't do the thing that you want to, in ADHD, that's a fundamental element. We can plan what we want to do, and we absolutely know what our priorities are, and we want to do them. People think we don't, but we do. We know that people tell us it's willpower, and we internalize that a bit, but it isn't. It's usually not a willpower issue. It's an executive function disorder. So that's when you do things that you maybe don't want to do, but there's also two competing thoughts. So the cognitive dissonance of two competing thoughts. And again, for ADHD, this is wildly common. I'm lazy, but I objectively get a lot done. I'm stupid and I'm clever. ADHD sometimes feels like one big opposite and competing thought.
As usual, you're kind of the king or the emperor of the miserable problem. But what can people do about it? I suppose we'll do it in top tips. But before we get there, what's the evidence say, Al?
Yeah, there's the rub, right? It's two things, but as we always say, you know what the first one is? Emotional acceptance, blah, blah, blah. If you plan to not have ADHD, you're very much the panorama of your own mind. You're lying to yourself and everyone else. I've checked that joke with our lawyer, but the problem is our lawyer's a stone with a face that James painted on it, so that might not be helpful. So the difficult but obvious things are change the thoughts. Thoughts aren't real. That's easier said than done, of course. It's really hard because we have issues around flexible cognition or changing our thoughts. So you might need a piece of paper somewhere reminding you what your values are, reminding you to question thoughts and beliefs. How do I know this is true? When I say I have to do this, what are the consequences of the have to? What does have to mean? Or change the actions. Again, particularly difficult for us, but one way to start doing this is to exist within your ADHD framework and start to know who you are and what that is, rather than fight against it.
So you said change your actions. How the fuck do you do that, though?
That's it.
Yeah.
That is it. You can, but it's hard. It needs practice and love, self-love. Can't imagine a ding in self-love. Meta ding? Don't know. So it's a really great question, Sam. And that's what coaches are. That's what therapy is. That's what the meds help us with and practice. One way to start is to ask, what have you done in the past? What did you do in the past? Because this intent to do things and then not doing them is crippling. We know what we want to do. And if we can't do them, we couldn't do it in the past, it's unlikely we'll be able to do it in the future. And then beating ourselves up about that isn't helpful. It's a neurological disorder. And then ask, okay, I want to do this now, or I have to do that, and I've agreed I have to. What is the one tiny small action or behavior that could kickstart the overall action? And it's usually emotional. So a feeling like, I don't know who to call, or I want someone to do that for me. Who could do it? So what's the tiniest first step? This is how we procrastinate, essentially.
What the hell? What is going on? Will one of you speak?
I got lost. I know it feels like an eternity to you, but that was 3 seconds of silence.
Not even 3.
I know. I got lost and confused. Yeah, so I'm just going to. But
the last thing. Shall I carry on?
Go on. Yes.
Yeah, go on.
It's amazing, Sam, that you're probably less than 2 seconds. I really want to measure afterwards. Feels like an eternity. That is ADHD. It is. People listen to this, and we speak quick. People listen to this on double speed.
Yeah.
for exactly that reason. If the last one works, I said I'd do two things, but three things, and I gave two. So if the others don't work, try to change the perception of your action. What that means is I've done an action and I'm feeling terrible about it. Can I forgive myself for that? So what is the action I need to do, and can I forgive myself for doing it? If you value a tidy house, for example, my value is the tidy house. It's back to that thing of you will never have a tidy house because the term doesn't mean anything. It's not specific enough. So the perception of what tidying means, it always be tidier. We say it every time. So
You say it
emptying
every
one
week.
bin could me. That literally is tidying your house, isn't it? So reframe the action as a win that is in line with the value of having a tidier house. That's it, really. That's what you can do. I know that's top tips. We'll do more later on.
We'll be tipping the tip later on. I think we're going to have to take a break because Sam's confused. I'm tired, and Alex is Alex. So we'll see you in part 2 for some personal reflection. See you then.
Bye.
Alex, hi. What's up? Hello.
Welcome back to episode 114 of the ADHD Adults podcast, where we're talking about cognitive dissonance and ADHD. In this part, we'll give our personal reflections on cognitive dissonance and ADHD. James.
I love the way you pronounced that. It was brilliant. On cognitive dissonance and ADHD. Yeah. So I like you, Sam. I think first. I know what the phrase cognitive dissonance is because I use it when I try and be clever on the internet, on Twitter and that. About people, about people who've made political choices and statements. Politicians who say one thing and obviously do a very different thing. But applying it to myself, I struggled with it first when I really had to think about this. And the first thing that I thought was that I sometimes don't know the difference between genuine cognitive dissonance, like believing one thing but thinking another thing about that thing that you believe, and low self-esteem. Because obviously I think nothing, less than nothing of myself, and yeah, obviously, I do talks, Al.
Oh, your little talks, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't like talking about them, but obviously doing a talk. And when loads of people, or at least 6 people, clap or laugh or come and say thank you afterwards, I still obviously think that I'm shit and I'm useless and I'm not good at doing anything.
Yeah, you are.
And therefore I used to, and maybe still do to some extent, kind of confuse a little bit that holding 2 thoughts just with having low self-esteem and struggling to accept anything positive about myself. That's where the biggest difference is between thoughts and reality, and thoughts and competing thoughts are for me, is that if one of those thoughts involves a positive about me, I will always have an opposing thought, which will be, no, but that's not true because you're shit. So that for me, there was that at first when I was thinking about this grey area about that. But when you start to think about thoughts and actions in particular, I mean, Christ, as an ex-nurse who, while I was nursing, was smoking and taking drugs and doing all the things that you shouldn't be doing, and saying people, well, smoking is really bad for you. As the director of an aging research centre who knows empirically that the activity that shortens your lifespan and speeds up the aging process faster than anything is smoking. Still smokes, and in fact smokes more than I ever have. For example, there are clear cognitive dissonances that I will, claim to have, not kind of Mrs. ADHD levels of eco-friendliness, but I'll, claim that I think it's important, but will, I have no idea if the money if my pension scheme's is invested in carbon fuel in oil companies. I've never checked. I've never kind of bothered. I don't often kind of make the effort to justify the very self-righteous beliefs I sometimes express to people. And I think part of that would be, a cognitive dissonance. If I say or genuinely believe that this is right and this is the acceptable thing to do, but don't do it, or don't even attempt to do it, or don't really put the effort in to think about it, I'm just saying what I think is right, or maybe what people want to hear. And I think I really need to go away and think about this, particularly about the thought side of it as opposed to the thought action, because I realize I've got some dissonance there, but the thought side of it, I need to go in and have a think. It's definitely something that I think you're right. I do have a lot of it, but teasing that out from just general self-loathing, etc., and low self-esteem, I think is difficult for me.
Yeah.
Sam at par. Like,
That when you were saying that as well, the number of times after you'd done some program on TV and people used to come to me and say, "Oh, now I know James won't agree with this because I'm drinking a fizzy drink or I'm eating this," and I'm like, James does not fucking do any of the things he tells you to do on TV. That's just not him. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, he lives on apple cider vinegar and turmeric, doesn't he?
Yeah. The low self-esteem thing, actually, I was going to say, because in the past I have done things that actually I don't even fucking enjoy doing because I want to appear like a normal person or want people to think that I'm like them because I've got such low self-esteem. So sometimes I'll go along with things and do things that fucking painful and don't even enjoy because so that. But yes, what you were saying as well.
You mean this podcast, don't you?
Yeah. But what you were saying as well about the environment, obviously I'm a vegan, I really try hard for the environment, but like the other day I was buying something off Amazon and thinking, I should really find an alternative that but it's so convenient, and then fucking hating myself because I did that. And the same with the environment, and yet we'll go on holiday on a plane and I know it's shit for the environment, but and then you end up hating yourself, and I guess that's what you're saying. And I was saying to Alex in the break that, God, I think I've got loads of these, but I can't remember them. I always say that I'm full of contradictions, but I can't remember what any of those contradictions are now. And he was saying I could tell you what some of them are, and then gave me a list of why I'm so shit. No, he didn't really. But he was saying,
it's laminated on my desk.
You know that you should self-care. You know that you should take a break and not take too much on. That's the advice you'd give to other people, but you don't do yourself. So even though I think I'm shit and I don't deserve a break, I know cognitively that I should do that because that's what I would tell other people to do. Yes. So I think I get it now. What about you, Alex? I know. I think.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't have a belief system, like any belief systems. I've been challenged on this before. I don't believe anything. I don't think there is a single thing I actually believe to be fact. Like nothing. So, and that has always helped me. It makes me feel a lot. It's really powerful. I think it's part of the psychopath thing. Nothing. I think I know like how the universe is, science, religion, none of it. I don't think there's any belief system. It could all be different. And what I have known is within the confines of my, human life, anytime I break, I've broken because I'm not working within my ADHD framework, and I'm not working within my own personal values. That's when I break. It's what stress is to me. As soon as I'm living in a way that I know isn't right for me, I just break pretty quickly. It's pathetic, very much like a James Dean cool figure. Even doing things I'm good at that are bad for me, I'll break. When we started this podcast, James and I said, let's make each other laugh and record it. And then if no one listens, we've won because we've laughed for an hour, and that's why we brought you in, isn't it? Well, I laugh afterwards at Jamie's shirt and hair combination. We still do that now, and I value it more than anything. I think I do. The fact that people like it, sometimes I find really difficult. We used to joke and still do. We're really helping people, and I never wanted that. Partly because it's true, because the fear of RSD and the kind of if my job was I want to help people, that's not going to work. I'm not a savior type, and I don't work that way. I can't deal with it, and so podcast works because it's what I want to do within my values, and I think that people see that's what we're authentic. And if I'm not authentic at work, if I'm doing jobs for companies as a consultant that I don't like this, I get really upset and hurt inside. And what I do though, which is really helpful, is I lash out at my wife instead of just dealing with the problem.
Save that for top tips though, Al.
Yeah, not physically. No, she's German. She'd absolutely batter me. So yeah, this is tough for me, this one, because it's the thing I find the most difficult. Yeah, I guess.
I think listen, that in itself, and again, this is where I think my confusion or the overlap, I don't know which it is, about the way in which we all have that. Even you, Alex, everyone knows you come across as having confidence and
Don't they just?
and
I know that.
and inside it's the fuck it's you're just not inside. You've got all that
No.
fragility that we've all got, and
Hot
that
mess.
thing, yeah, that exact thing of when we started this, and we did it wasn't a joke. We had 12 listeners for for months.
We was delighted, weren't we?
Exactly, and it was like,
It
"Oh, it's
almost
amazing."
reduces the pressure, though, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If nobody's
It
listening.
does. But when we met Deborah, for example, as we said last week, we bumped into in, I think it was Sainsbury's, wasn't it? When we
Yes.
met her, and when we meet people at the little talks, and when we did the live podcast events, and when Alex has gone to conferences and met people, and they've known him from the podcast, I don't think people actually know. Some people do, but many people don't understand the it's not cringe, but almost the pain when someone says, you've helped us so much, and this has helped. And we obviously kind of know we have, but we also cannot accept the possibility that something we're doing is helping people. It's such a weird duality to have in your head. So yeah, I find that fascinating. Anyway, you got time for a game,
You have to stop yourself from insulting people, don't you?
Yeah, you have to accept
Like
that
from
they're
saying,
not
"Oh, don't be
complimenting you.
stupid." Oh, as if I've helped you. If it was like,
Yeah, you fucking idiot for feeling help. Honestly, you know Murphy from Discord, she tweeted me the other day to say, no, she sent me a DM that said, I'm going to have to give you a compliment, but you can tell me to get in the sea with it, because it was very funny. I've learned to say thank you, because the fact that it means something to them is a fact. It's not. Yeah, it feels like they like.
This is when James first met me. He spent a lot of because I would obviously I just say whatever in my head, and I would bat off every compliment and almost put them down for it, as if to say, don't be so fucking stupid, what's wrong with you? And James was like, you just have to say thank you, and you can disregard it in your brain. So now I always just say, oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to just point out that your game IED'd then, Sam.
Did I? Sorry.
Just as I was saying. And Alex,
so we have no time for it.
No, we have. Alex went with it. I noticed very quickly by engaging in a full conversation about that fact, rather than just saying
about cognitive dissonance.
Come on, then play your fucking game.
Oh, for fuck's sake! Anyway, you're 12-10 up. I'm not happy about this. I don't think the game is very good this week. But sometimes when the game is not very good, you don't get it right. So I've got a bit of hope.
It's never very good.
No.
Shut up, Alex. Right. As you, I think you know part of this story, Al, but you know that we recently went, visited Leeds, was it? I don't know. We visited somewhere up north, and we went in the electric car, the new blue.
For my little talk?
Yeah, your talks aren't little, Sam.
No, they're amazing and massive, exactly. Sam. Impactful.
The talks.
You put yourself
down.
One.
There's been one, and there will
one
never
excellent
be
one.
Yeah. Yes. Anyway, we went up in the new blue, awful blue, horrid vomit blue electric car that I impulsively bought in blue because I couldn't wait 8 weeks for another colour.
Yeah, it
does. And we had some charging issues with it. It's the first time we've done a long journey. I really wanted to do a longer journey because that's why we got a newer car. And the charging didn't go well, partly because Mrs. ADHD may not have charged it after using it for 2 days. Don't pull that face. After using it for 2 days beforehand, she hadn't charged it before we set off.
Doesn't sound right.
And I checked the mileage and I thought, okay, we've definitely got enough to get there and then some. And I paid like a little bit for something called BP Pulse, so you can find charging points, and we'll charge it when we get there.
Geek.
Yeah, I know. Didn't go well, obviously, and I ended up with, I think, 14 miles left in the car, frantically driving around Leeds trying to find a charger, and then didn't go well. So what was it about when I actually got to a charging point that I could use that didn't go well? Was it A, that when trying to pay for it, because it's just a tap and swipe thing, that you use a fob that you've got that comes with that service? Was I using my payment card instead of the fob?
Okay.
And soundbite wouldn't work. Was it 2, that I'd gone to entirely the wrong type of charger, and it would have taken almost 24 hours to charge my car up, because they come at different wattages or watt hours, 5, 50, 135. Or was it 2, that I swiped my fob, sat in the car, and then didn't realise for half an hour that it wasn't actually charging. So,
Interesting.
Mm.
Right then. I don't think it's different wattages because you can't do numbers either. I don't think it's the fob card payment because you use Transylvanian shekels from 300 years ago. So I think you sat there and it wasn't actually charging because you hadn't checked. What's happened, James? What's happened?
1310.
Oh,
Yeah. We'd actually, on the way up, and this had caused a lot of distress for Mrs. ADHD, we'd tried to stop at 3 garages that had chargers, and every time it just wouldn't take the payment. And we were like, we're getting a bit frantic because the miles were going down faster. And then found a garage that was close to the apartment, drove there, plugged it in, accepted everything, tapped it, sat in the car, and hadn't noticed it. It said like 10 seconds later, payment declined. And I was sat in the car because I was doing some stuff on my laptop, thinking, I'll use this time to work. And it's a fast charge, and then went out and it still said like payment declined, try again. Half an hour. The car makes a fucking noise when you charge it. The dash of the car says charging when you charge it, and I was sat there like not noticing any of those things. 1310. Devastated.
We've
Devastated.
all learned a lot of boring information about your electric car. So
We have
it's lose in a way.
It is, but not for you because you won on that.
Yay! I feel like I lost.
On that devastating note, we'll take a break and we'll be back in part 3. See you in a bit.
Bye.
No.
Trumpet.
The fuck is somebody
Welcome
gonna
back
speak?
to episode 114 of the ADHD Adults podcast, where we are setting Sam up to interrupt us on purpose because it amuses us. We're talking about ADHD and cognitive dissonance, which is thinking things that are kind of against your beliefs or values, or doing things that are against your beliefs or values. As always, top tips for cognitive dissonance. That's always. Sam, got any top tips coming to you first? 'Cause I'm fairly certain you're annoyed that you put it in and you haven't written anything. Tips.
I think just, you've got a neurological condition. Go easy on yourself if you don't do things the way you think you should. Or hang on, what else has James written?
Listen, sorry, I'm really
That's a great
fucking annoyed. I'm the only one that's written something down, and she has said something better immediately.
That isn't what you wrote.
I know, but this is what I fucking.
It's all up here.
Yeah, it's emotional acceptance, blah blah blah, isn't it?
It is. Yeah,
What's
it
the
is.
fucking point in beating yourself up after you've done it and you can't control your brain? That's the fucking point. If we could, we'd all be fine, wouldn't we? And we're not fine.
No.
I had other things. I'm sure I had loads to say, but I've forgotten them now. James?
Yeah.
Yeah, James.
I mean, these are going to be shit. I think actually I've got right back into the vogue of doing really bad top tips. Although you two challenged that last week and said it wasn't shit, but let's face it, it probably was.
Yeah,
I don't remember that.
It's all relative, isn't it?
It is, exactly. Listen, beliefs and actions aren't always going to match each other because it's sometimes really hard. For example, if you are in a disadvantaged position, you might really believe in animal welfare and want to live a vegan lifestyle, or you might want to buy, if you're not a vegetarian or a vegan, you might want to buy kind of organic and meat products where the animals have had better welfare. But if you can't afford it, then you can't follow that belief with your actions. So sometimes you have to, take that into account and accept that we don't all have the luxury and the status and the ability sometimes for our actions to match our beliefs. So sometimes it's just something you can't do. So as Mrs. ADHD annoyingly said, forgiving yourself and accepting that in an ideal world that's something you would do is probably a healthy way to approach that. And when it's thoughts about yourself, and again, this comes back to my kind of whether it's confusion or crossover between cognitive dissonance and just thinking that you're shit. I think Alex may have mentioned this about thoughts are just thoughts, but challenge your beliefs, because often our thoughts our thoughts about ourselves are beliefs. They're not just thoughts. We firmly believe to the point of knowing in rabbit ears, Al, that these truths about ourselves are set in stone, even if there's objective evidence that those beliefs aren't true, and just gently start to challenge them.
Yeah.
So, if you're the kind of person that genuinely thinks, as a university professor that you're thick and useless, or as somebody that runs a company that you're rubbish and don't have any organizational skills, you wouldn't, I'm sure if somebody said to you, well, how did you get to that position? Because it's very difficult to do that. If you are that useless, you probably make up an excuse like I do. I failed upwards. I was in the right place at the right time. It was lucky, but it's far healthier to just start to gently challenge those beliefs you got, which don't align with things that you know to be true. Just
Yeah,
gently.
and advise yourself the way you'd advise a friend.
Yeah, that's such good advice. That's it. Yeah.
She
Sorry.
derailed your top tips there.
Oh, sorry.
She's done.
No.
Oh, good.
It is what the psychologists say. Kind of, I should have put it in the psychoeducation. But try and be. If you had a boss, Sam, for example, or Jay, both, if you had a boss that treated you the way you treat yourselves, they'd be fired.
Yeah,
I don't know if they would.
So I'm not sure which episode it was, but Sam talked about Sam talked about Future Sam, or I think Sam told everybody about Future Sam. Maybe
my talk.
Sam's big talk, because she does big ones and I do little ones. Talk. And she doesn't, she genuinely doesn't like to talk about it, and I obviously fucking joke that I don't. Sam talked about something that happened to us when we were at a festival. We were not in the best condition, let's put it that way. And our tent needed to be cleaned and packed away, because I was examining a PhD at 9 o'clock the following morning, 150 miles away from the festival. So as we were going back to the tent at 1 a.m, and we were like, oh God,
we've got to back out into the festival.
Yeah, and we were going, oh God, we've got to tidy the tent. Sam said, yeah, but that's a problem for Future Sam and James. And actually, that's become an approach sometimes for doing good things. Obviously, that was doing a really bad thing for Future Sam and James. It was saying you're going to have to
those guys.
Yeah. But actually, sometimes now Sam can do stuff for Future Sam, which allows her to be, which allows her to be kinder to her. So actually, that considering yourself as a different person when it comes to challenging your beliefs, that's one way in which you do it. Is Future Sam. And
I can comfort myself by thinking that I'm somebody else. So I will be like, shh, it's okay, it's all right, everything's beginning, as if I'm almost like a little child. So thinking of myself as somebody else really works for me. And as I said in the talk, how stupid am I that my brain can trick itself into believing that it is a different, like it's mental to me, but I can trick my own brain.
I also think that you should, particularly again when it comes to those beliefs about yourself, is consider other perspectives, because people will often say to you, if you're wearing a really awful shirt and you ask them, they'll often say, this is something that Mrs. ADHD can't say. They'll often say, oh, yeah, it looks nice, but that's often for things that are on the surface. Most people probably do offer considered opinions about you and say things that they genuinely believe to be true, and we discount them immediately. Well, you would say that, but actually no, they wouldn't say that most of the time.
If they're positive, they wouldn't say
exactly. So consider other perspectives if they challenge thoughts and beliefs that you have that are dissonant to what you do or what you think about yourself. And then the last thing I wrote down, which I love because it's got fuck all to do with cognitive dissonance, because I didn't know what it was at the start of writing my bits, was Alex always thinks he's right till I prove him wrong. And I don't really know why I put that.
No, or what that means.
Or why you read it out.
I'm glad you read it out. We have to, don't we?
It's funny.
Yeah, I've been told often that my opinions sound like facts, but I think that's growing up as a working class man. You're sort of empowered with this thing of your voice matters, even though it shouldn't and doesn't and isn't right.
Really?
That's what
I
men
grew
are
up as a
taught.
working class man, and I don't feel that way.
Close.
That's true, yeah.
Who hasn't gone? I don't know.
Alex hasn't gone.
I haven't gone. Right. There's tips for, depends what your thing is, what your reason is. If your reason for doing something that's against what you want to do is an addiction or habit, firstly, forgiveness, of course. Everyone knows my issues with substance use disorder, and we haven't talked gambling, but I don't do that. I don't gamble. Computer games, anything really that I found the absolute time suck. I needed forgiveness, but I also needed to change it. And that is only possible if you've got ADHD. within an ADHD framework. I've said that before as well, which means other people's. I wrote down the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous the other day and fundamentally disagreed with the approach of 11.99999 of them because they don't work for me. That all the things, they just don't work. That I do the opposite to be, and I'm a sober person. And so it requires me, your not just ADHD framework, but your own. So if it's an addiction, it's different. Similarly, if it's forced compliance, it's different as well. You have to eat and you need to pay your mortgage and you've got to eat. So if you're at work and they're making you do something that you don't want to do, that is, that's maybe legal, but that's not within your values. It's okay to forgive yourself for not going, I goddamn quit and I'm going to live under a bridge. Your kids have got to eat or you've got to eat. That also requires
Unless
forgiveness.
you're like someone that tortures people or something, or
what's wrong with what? Sorry,
I'm
unrelated to
that
cognitive
one,
dissonance.
like-
Someone that tortures people.
Yeah, it's if you're someone that hard tickles. And the other one is more doable, which is if it's something you can control, that's a cognitive dissonance. So you're kind of choosing to do things that you don't really want to do or don't value. That's where James and Sam's techniques are fundamental here, because it's about changing the thoughts and changing the actions. Maybe write down. What I would say for the one thing is that when we get stressed with ADHD, we suddenly can't remember what our values are or our strengths or what we want or who the hell we are. So write them down when you're peaceful somewhere. I have them on my phone, what I will do and what I won't. And if somebody asks me to do something, I always say, if it's now, it's no. If you need me to answer you right now, it's always going to be no. If I'm allowed to go away and think about it and get back to you tomorrow, it might be a yes. Ding.
You've just given Sam a great way to get out of me prodding her in the back on a Friday or Saturday morning,
Ding.
trying to get her to. If it's now, it's no.
Is that a Canadian bush swing? If you're
disengaging with it. Brilliant. Okay, that was actually useful, Alex, again. And that was episode 140 of the ADHD Adults podcast, ADHD and Cognitive Dissonance. I'm laughing because...
What have you Googled?
ChatGPT. So obviously I'm struggling now to find things to say at the end of this. So I was putting lots of stuff into ChatGPT, and we'll talk about this on Thursday because it came back with some really, really funny stuff about the podcast.
Not on purpose though, right?
No. So this just doesn't work, but I'm getting desperate. So if by miracle you enjoyed this episode, why not support the charity on the link provided? Because otherwise Alex will have to carry on standing in for Garfield's eyeball every second Thursday. Help me, I'm struggling with these.
Garfield's eyeball. Did you tell it that was a round thing, or did
No,
you decide
I asked for balloon-shaped things that are in cartoons, and it came up with Garfield's eyeball.
It is. That also sounds like a definite sex euphemism. Oh God,
Guess you gave me a Garfield's eyeball.
That way.
Anyway, as usual, if you're still listening at this point, which probably not many of you. And you want to get in touch, contact us on Discord, on the socials at the ADHD Adults, and we will see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye all.
Trigger warning klaxon, 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 big klaxon. Trigger warning klaxon, 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 klaxon.